All right, guys, here we go. Last week of e-learning, and the last thing we're going to do this week is surface area and volume of spheres. So basically a sphere is just like a ball, a globe, something like that. It's a three-dimensional shape. And the formula for it is right here. The surface area, which we call S, is 4 pi r squared. Okay, that 4 is part of the formula, the pi is part of the formula, and of course the r is the radius. Okay, so let's just look at some examples here. First one is pretty basic. We've got a sphere with a radius of 8. So the radius equals 8. So we're just going to put that 8 into our formula where we have the surface area equals 4 pi r, which is 8 squared. 8 squared is 64. And if you multiply 64 times 4 times pi, you should get 804.25 inches. And since this is surface area, like if you're wrapping the ball in saran wrap or in tin foil or something like that, it's going to be in inches squared because it is the amount of paper or whatever you would need to actually cover it. Okay, so that was letter A. Letter B, it tells us the circumference. But remember, I'm going to put this over here. Our surface area is 4 pi r squared. Well, in order to do our surface area, we need to know the radius. Well, the circumference doesn't tell us what the radius is as it is. But we do know that if we wanted to write the formula for the circumference so that it has radius, the circumference is 2 pi r. So that means if the circumference is 12 pi and the circumference is also 2 pi r, we can set those two values equal to each other. So we can say 12 pi equals 2 pi r. And if we just divide out the 2 pi on both sides, we get that the radius is 6. And once we know what the radius is, we can come back over here to our surface area formula. And we can say surface area is 4 pi r squared. 6 squared is 36. And if we multiply those together, we get 452.39. Again, it's surface area, so it's inches squared. All right, this one, very similar, except this time that tells us the surface area, but it wants us to find the diameter. Okay, so remember, if we have the surface area, we're going to use the same idea. The surface area is 20.25 pi. Okay, that's just what we have right here. We also know that the formula for the surface area is 4 pi r squared. Okay, since the surface area equals 20.25 pi, surface area also equals 4 pi r squared, we can set these two values equal to each other. And we can say that 4 pi r squared equals 20.25 pi. Again, we want r, that's the value we want to find, so we're going to divide out 4 pi on both sides. And again, use your calculator for this. If you divide it out, you get r squared equals 5.0625. Don't round that at this point, because if you actually take the square root of 5.0625, that means the radius is 2.25. So when you take the square root of both sides, you get 2.25. Well, if the radius is 2.25, the diameter is double that, so the diameter is going to be 2.25 times 2, which is 4.5. Okay, so here we are again. It says to find the surface area of the sphere. All right, well, this has a diameter of 40. Notice that the red is all the way across, which means the diameter is 40, the radius is 20. So we can just put that into our formula that the surface area is 4 pi r squared, which is going to be 20 squared. If you don't know what that is, you can put that into your calculator. Remember, when you're doing this, you need to make sure you do exponents and then multiply. So 20 squared is 400. 400 times pi times 4 is going to give you 5,026.55 feet squared. Okay, let's move on here. This one is like the second one that we did on the previous slides, where it tells you what the circumference is. So we need to use that information to find what the radius is. So we know the formula for circumference is 2 pi r. So we can say that 2 pi r equals 6 pi. Well, if we want r all by itself, we're just going to divide out 2 pi on both sides. And we get, the pi's cancel, 6 divided by 2 is 3. Once we know what our radius is, then we can go ahead and put that into our formula. The surface area is 4 pi r, which is 3. 3 squared is 9. So we're going to have 9 times 4 times pi, which is 36 pi, which is 113.1 feet squared. All right, last one here. It says, find the radius given the surface area. Again, we did something very similar to this already. This is just another practice example. If the surface area equals 30 pi, surface area also equals our formula, 4 pi r squared. We can set those equal to each other. 30 pi equals 4 pi r squared. We're going to divide 4 pi out on both sides. And we are going to get that r squared equals 7.5. And go ahead and take the square root of both sides, and you should get that the radius is approximately 2.74 meters. Again, you're going to have to do a little bit of rounding on that one to get that, because the decimal keeps going. Next thing we're going to do is volume. Okay, and the volume, I like to write it like this, where you have everything on top, 4 pi r cubed, and then divide the whole thing by 3. I like to think about it that way. I always do what is in the numerator first. I multiply all of those things together first, get my answer, and then divide by 3. It doesn't really matter. That's just the way that I prefer it. Most common mistake kids make is that they forget that this is cubed, not squared. Okay, so make sure you know how to cube your radius on here with your calculator too. So it's 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. So let's just kind of look at some examples here. We have a soccer ball, and we want to find the volume, like how much air will go into the soccer ball or something like that. So let's start by writing out our formula for volume equals 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. So I'm going to go ahead for pi. Well, our radius is 4.5 cubed divided by 3. So make sure before you do any multiplying or dividing, you take that 4.5 to the third power, multiply 4.5 to the third, get that, multiply it times pi times 4, and then divide that whole numerator by 3. And if you did it correctly, you should get that the volume of the soccer ball is 381, I was going to put pi there, 381.7 inches cubed. All right, so now we're kind of going between surface area and volume. So we have to think about putting them together, how the things that we know. So this says that the surface area is 324 pi square centimeters, okay? And the volume is what it's asking us to find, which is 4 pi r cubed over 3. Well, if you notice, the volume formula uses a radius. Well, how can we find the radius with the given surface area? We've already done that. We know that the surface area is 4 pi r squared, okay, which means we can say that 324 pi equals 4 pi r squared. And if we divide out the 4 pi on both sides, we get that our radius, or we get that 81 is equal to r squared, but we don't want r squared, so we're going to go ahead and take the square root, and we get that our radius is 9. Once we know our radius, then we can use that to find our volume. So then we're going to say our volume is 4 pi times 9 to the third, all divided by 3. Again, don't try to divide 9 divided by 3 first or anything. You have to do exponents and then multiplication and division. So if we put that into our calculator, we cube 9, 9 cubed times pi times 4 divided by 3, we get approximately 3,053.63, what are we in, centimeters? Centimeters. And again, this is volume, so it's going to be centimeters cubed. All right, just a couple more examples here. These are just some basic ones. The radius of a sphere is 5, find the volume. Okay, so we know that we have the radius, so we can just say 4 pi, radius is 5, cubed, divided by 3. Okay, well, if we do 5 cubed times pi times 4, take that, divide by 3, we get that our volume is 523.6 yards cubed. Now I have gone ahead and I have put all of these into my calculator, so just because I have the answers here doesn't mean you should not be putting them in your calculator. Make sure that you know how to put them in correctly so that it's putting it in with order of operations and things, so it's not giving you incorrect answers. All right, so the next one, the diameter of a sphere is 36. Find the volume. Okay, well, if the diameter is 36, that's not helpful because we don't need the diameter for any of our formulas. What we need is the radius. Well, the radius is just half that, which is 18. So we don't have to do a whole lot. We just have to say the volume is 4 pi r, which is 18 cubed divided by 3. And if we put that into our calculator, we get 24,429.02 inches cubed. All right, this is another one where they give you the surface area, you have to find the volume again. So we know that surface area, it tells us, is 576 pi. We also know the formula for surface area is 4 pi r squared. So we can say that 4 pi r squared equals 576 pi. If we want to get r by itself, we just divide the 4 pi out on both sides, and we get r squared equals 144, which means our radius, if we take the square root of both sides, is 12. Okay, then once we know the radius, we can put that into our volume formula. We'd get 4 pi, our radius is 12, cubed divided by 3. So our volume is going to be, do the exponent first, multiply, multiply, and then divide, and we get 7,238.23 centimeters cubed. Okay, this is the last week for lesson videos and things like that. So in Schoology, you will find a practice worksheet and a key, just like always, and a demonstration of mastery. Okay. However, since it's the last week, and I think it's just going to be my gift to you, is you do not have to make a video. You just have to do the 5 questions, put it into GoodNotes, show all of your work, very complete work, so that we know how you got your answer, and just submit the GoodNotes file into Schoology. So you do not have to do a video this week, and I hope that makes things a little easier as we're kind of winding down on this e-learning. And so good luck, and it's due by Thursday this week, just so that way it gives me more time to get you guys in ICU, get it resubmitted, things like that, so that we can get it all taken care of by early next week. So have a good day. Thanks.